This is Jake Gallen with Emblem Vault, and this is Pursue Vegas.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pursue Vegas podcast. I am your host, Dave Berlin.
And I'm your co-host, Tani Nguyen.
And when I say we're excited, this is another one of those things where there's so much history in today's guest, because Jake Gallen isn't just the CEO of Emblem Vault. He's the host of the Jake's Guest List podcast, a podcast that I was on a long time ago. And ever since I actually met this guy, he opened up some of the most incredible doors for me, a new kid to the city, that have really got us right back here. Not only that, whenever I did the first round of the Pursue Vegas series for the episode about entrepreneurship, Jake was really passionate about sharing some of the challenges that he saw. And I'm just going to throw myself under the bus because I keep showing people that video, and the editor spelled his name wrong. And every time I tried to ask him to fix it, the guy basically told me to go to hell. And so there's this whole thing of Jake Gallen out in the world that I keep showing him about Pursue Vegas. So this interview today is to get it right. And I'm just going to leave out the fact that I also had him on the Dave Means Business podcast, and that episode, I lost it. We're not going to lose this one, man.
It's the lost episodes.
It's the lost episodes. This is the episodes that really matter. So this is like the iceberg. This is the part that people see. That's all the old stuff.
Just the tip.
Right?
You got to love a full circle moment.
The full circle moment, and this is it. So Jake Gallen with a G. Bro, tell me all about you. What are you excited about? It's on you.
Well, first, appreciate you for having me on the show, both of you, and it's nice to meet you. This is probably the first in-person podcast I've done in about 6 months, so maybe it's good to finally leave the bedroom for once in a while. Dude, I'm always ecstatic about Vegas. I'm ecstatic about life. Ecstatic about my business, Emblem Vault, which is a crypto company. But starting my podcast back in 2020, at the time it was actually called the Guest List Podcast. It's gone through a few names. You kind of figured this out as your podcast host. That's really what opened the doors up to lead me to where I am today and exploring it. It's a little background about the podcast. At the time of during the pandemic, I realized that the world was changing very quickly, and you needed to put your voice out there. You needed to have your voice owned through a few communication platforms. I've always been a Twitter guy, but as we were all locked down, I kind of made this decision to finally start the podcast after kind of kicking the can around for a few years. And ultimately, I started talking with just entrepreneurs. My first two guests on the show were nurses from the city. We were talking about COVID, and then started reaching out to my network. I'm born and raised out here in Las Vegas, grew up on the east side, went to UNLV, worked on the Strip, worked in the clubs for a long time. So I had network from all over the city, and it really just blew up so fast. Within the first few weeks and maybe 30 episodes, it became like a top local show in the city. And I never had to reach out to a guest ever again for the 200 episodes that were just Vegas based. I was in contact with PR companies, referrals, literally celebrities, billionaires hitting me up to come on the show, come interview in my little 400 square foot apartment in the Arts District, which I still am there today. And that always makes me excited, and I eventually want to get back to that. I did have to leave it to go pursue, business and life aspiration opportunities, but coming back full circle, I've always had a huge belief and faith in Vegas that it was going to be one of the top cities in the world, and it's finally, starting to get that notoriety. Couldn't be more excited for it, especially to be talking here with creators like yourself, where 4 years ago, and I was looking for local Vegas podcasts, there was none. There was like five. There's like 5 people doing it. It felt so desolate.
Well, yeah, man, and you're not wrong, and you've seen it from your whole life because you were born and raised here, right? And you've seen especially the changes of everything that's happened just in the last few years. We obviously have seen the podcast world change, right? There's all these big studios and stuff now, and especially with like Hollywood 2.0. I personally can't speak to what that really looks like because there are people that are way more advanced in that industry than me. But I see this middle fallout of like podcast studios everywhere, like 50 of them across the valley Like, it's going to be an amenity just as common as a pool at an apartment complex. Like, people are going to be like, oh, you're living in the apartment complex that doesn't have a podcast studio. Like, that's going to be a real, like, first world problem for people. But it's definitely something that we can all take advantage of. But you don't have to. I mean, you can shoot it. You can keep shooting it, right out of your apartment.
Yeah, I made a big transition. So my podcast, I've done probably close to 500 episodes now at this point. The first 200 was just literally Vegas, local entrepreneur based, and it was all in person. Once I moved into crypto, it was all online, and the flow of the conversation naturally changes. Right here, being able to pick up mannerisms, body language, social cues.
Hand and arm signals.
Right, hand and arm signals. Right, I can finally point and get mad at you, and you can feel my anger for not releasing that episode from years ago.
Throw your water at him too.
Right, that is, it's important to the conversation. There's reasons why all the top podcasters in the world all do their show primarily in person, or they travel. Right, if you're Lex Friedman, then you actually travel and get to meet all these type of people. And Vegas, I pointed this out very early in my podcast history, that Vegas is a city of entertainment, but what I saw was happening very quickly was moving to become the city of experience. And when I was growing up in the city, I could tell you literally since I was maybe early high school days or even late middle school days, the people in the city were always saying that Vegas was going to be the next LA. That was literally, it's probably still being ushered and uttered today. But it's transforming. And when I worked at Omnia nightclub and I worked in the day club scene, I finally understood what it actually meant. It meant that Vegas is being able to commoditize a section of industry that's tangentially related to entertainment. And that was actually the nightlife space. What I had realized working in the club is you're working with supermodels, right? You're working with, bussers who are also models and very experienced people, and you're around very wealthy people consistently. And that is the Hollywood of the city, is the strips, the servers and the bartenders and the bussers and all these positions where you actually have to audition. When I got hired at Omnia nightclub, there was 5,000 servers applied and 2,000 bussers, and they hired 60 people of each. That was back when Omnia was first opening, got to open and go through that whole experience. But it showed me that these servers, they have just as much star power as the Hollywood actors do and the influencers that navigate it. And then during the pandemic, we saw a huge flow of the tech space and content creators move out here and really set up shop, right? And even have some of the traditional Hollywood people like Mark Wahlberg did, but even a lot of the content creators, even like the biggest fintech or a fin influencer like Andre Gique moved out here. And I didn't get to have him on my show, but I was interviewing and talking with a lot of people who are tangentially related. And it just became so clearly obvious that Vegas was just basically going to, take over LA, but it was going to basically ratify it and modernize it because it's not as bloated with the multiple centuries of bureaucracy and the political aspect of the entertainment industry. That's what gets me excited about Vegas. There's so much room to go here.
I love that. Well, you've been here from the beginning, right?
Born and raised, east side of Vegas.
Seeing all the different changes in that, what do you think is like the biggest challenge right now, especially in things that have happened since pandemic? Obviously, that was a catastrophic challenge. Right? A lot of people have compared that to 2008, and I know I wasn't here. One person really yelled at me about it. I'm like, yeah, and he had a really great points. I don't even remember what he said, but it's like I know the casinos weren't boarded up in 2008. So he said, yeah, but it was still really bad, and he had great points. But like I saw it in 2020 when there was like nothing, and it literally looked like a ghost town. But even now, as it's evolved since then, what do you see as the biggest challenge that we have here in the ecosystem right now?
I mean, the clearly obvious one is just the rising cost to a degree. But just admitting that, because I think that's kind of the boring answer, right, to this conversation. Education is a big hurdle, but I kind of see it in a different way. Vegas is a very large what can you do for me now kind of town. It's built off of networking, and the large majority of those who come here who are born and raised here don't receive a stellar traditional education. But I think the city's already noticed that, and so most people, they don't opt to go to college, and they just basically start hustling. There's a huge hustle culture here. Some of it, maybe some of it's more black market hustle culture, and then a lot of it's more above board, where you're working 2-3 jobs at a time. But the amount of money you can make on the Strip, like I have friends, and even if you're working in the nightclub, if you're working a staff position job at the nightclub or service staff, most of you are making 6 figures. But some of these people will have 2-3 jobs, right? And if you're lucky to get like a traditional banking or banquet job at some of these casinos, you're making $300,000-$400,000 a year. And now there's a lot of competition where it's not just the locals who are competing for these jobs on the Strip, right? These highly touted jobs. It's now people from traveling all over the world. Not to go back to like the auditions at the nightclub, but when I was there was a large majority of those were not locals. There were people flying in from all over the world for these type of jobs. So the competition is really heating up, and now you have professional sports that have joined, and you're having there's a subtle tech scene that's slowly starting to migrate out here, and the adult entertainment industry has moved out here and set up shop over the last few years. And now you have Mark Wahlberg, who wants to build Hollywood 2.0, as you mentioned, and with casinos. So the ecosystem is changing. It's becoming a little bit more traditional or typical to like a metropolis that has commoditized an industry, which we're doing now today. And it's going to make it a much tougher barrier for some of the locals, because you have a majority of people who are competing for these jobs are not from the city. But then when they are hired for that, they then move out here.
No, I really admire that you took the opportunity during COVID, which is a time to where it really shows you who you are. It's either you pivot as an entrepreneur, but you started a freaking podcast. It's like when the world was going into its like deepest depression, as we don't want to call it, but we kind of can look back on it and be like, wow, we were pretty depressed because we had no idea what was going on. And coming from hospitality as well, like when you see the world was shutting down, like what was that moment like, that like the light bulb moment to where you're like, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm not going to be a victim of this town because I grew up here. I'm going to connect the people and make sure that, our voice is still heard. And how was that moment like for you to step into that power and decide to do that?
I appreciate that. It's actually a really good question, and was part of my thesis. Growing up, I went to a high school out here called Chaparral High School. Our graduation rate was 51%. It's very, very bad. There was more gangs at our high school than there was the graduation rate. I believe there was like 75 known gangs at the high school that I was at. And a lot of it was just because it was broken families and single parent homes or no parent homes. These kids have to get jobs. They have to drop out, right? They get caught up in the gang life, etc. And when I went to UNLV, thereafter, I had 4 classmates go with me to UNLV. So it was basically starting all over. And going through the college experience at UNLV, it was mostly those who were from the west side of the city, kind of the more, they were more well off as they grew up. And what that showed me was that most of the locals in the city, they don't aspire to they don't aspire to like greater lengths. For them, right, if the opportunity is, hey, I could go get a bartending gig at a local bar and make $70,000 or $80,000 a year, that's better than the national average. And hey, right, I just get to pour drinks my entire life, and that's kind of it. And then they're like, oh, well, if I could have 2 of these bartending jobs and work 60-hour weeks and make over $100K, right, then I'm settled and I'm doing better than the majority of people in the country. For me, though, when I was in college, I always wanted to build something. I've always been a little bit more of a go-getter. And when I was at the nightclub, I always come back to this because it was just like a big turning point in my life. It made the most money I've ever made. I was going out spending a lot of it, right? Engaging in, the typical party cycle that you do. Maybe we talk about that later. But after about 2 years, I kind of snapped out of it and realized that there wasn't really anything being done here. I was just going out and, indulging in all of the fantasies that you could kind of imagine or what people want, but it was never really what I wanted to do. So I started a few businesses before I got to the podcast. I started an antique store with my father. That was my first business. That was just like something we did when I was younger to survive. And so I thought it was like a cool opportunity. And then I started a company called Chameleon Verified Network, which was a ticket verification app. I had a really close relationship with the Revelation guys here who throw really awesome events. And a lot of people were getting scammed. This is when EDC first came here, and I was a big raver kid for a long time. So we were really trying to just
still a raver kid.
Still a raver kid, yeah. It transforms over time.
Right to the grave, baby.
Yeah. Once you get older, it changes, right? You just have a little bit more money, and you have a little bit more experience then, and maybe you don't party as hard. I went to EDC this year. I can only last 2 days before I was there, right? You're literally sundown to sun up last time. But those two experiences, although they did eventually fail after a few years, it taught me the most important thing in life, and that's experience. And that can be entrepreneurial experience, or it could be, the experience of entertainment, right? Or the experience of, another companion or whatever that case is. And I ended up getting sober for a few years while I was working at the nightclub because I was really going down a really dark path. And during this time, I really got into podcasting, listening to Joe Rogan and some of these others. And I noticed very quickly that the traditional the media world was changing. And I noticed that most of the emerging power players in the world all had a podcast. And to me, it was like very eye-opening to see Joe Rogan's rise to fame, Tim Ferriss, and some of these other ones. And I was like, hey, I want to do that. But something I always believed in Vegas was that even though Vegas has a very subpar, very, very subpar educational ranking, my entire life it's been somewhere between 48, 49, or 50. I don't think I've ever seen it above that in terms of the state rankings. I did notice that there were a lot of hustlers, right? People who were working since they're 16, multiple jobs. There was also some entrepreneurs who were out there as well trying to pursue things. Maybe it wasn't the right industry to get into, but there were people who did aspire for something outside of like the standard kind of educational route. Like when I went to UNLV, most people who get a degree at UNLV don't use it practically or professionally. And that's myself. I'm a kinesiology major, which is health science, and I never used that professionally. I just used it practically. And that was the large majority of people at UNLV. And so when I left Omnia Nightclub that last day in March of 2020, when COVID happened, I knew very quickly that this was going to be something quite extended. For how long, I didn't know. I thought it was going to be like 4 or 5 months. Turned out it was almost a year before they called us back. And I started the podcast within 3 weeks of the pandemic happening. I just saw it as the right opportunity. It was this feeling of, hey, you're going to do this now or you're going to do it never. And because it felt like the right opportunity, as you mentioned, like, because everyone is kind of sulking and confused. If you capitalize, if you can recognize opportunity and act on it in a quick fashion, then you'll generally find success or some sort of momentum. And so I mentioned this a little bit before though, had on 2 nurses were my first 2 guests who were in COVID. One of the guests had one of the first COVID patients, so we really got to learn then. And then I had on a bunch of my entrepreneur friends from different industries, from like solar to from solar to restaurants to a sex worker and the sex workers' right movement, and just started inviting all the closer friends from all the different past like things that I've done. And within, I would say by episode 30, it spiraled so quickly to become one of the top shows in the city. It actually got like a bunch of awards. That's on my website, jakegallen.com. And by episode 30, I had billionaires reaching out to me to come interview inside of my little ass apartment. I had literally media studios. There was like the Review Journal and these different type of publications and just individuals. I literally from episode 0 to I think close to 200 when it was just Vegas based, I never had to reach out to anybody ever again. And it made me realize that there was something here in Vegas, which I think this is what you guys are trying to pursue as well out here, which is that there is this cohort of entrepreneurs. It's small, but it does exist. And so if you could actually tap into it and get into this circle of maybe 1,000 when I started in 2020, it was maybe about 1,000 people. Maybe it's now about 5,000 since the pandemic. Then you could really find the what's really special about the city.
No, I love that whole story because like how things start and how things like transpire is really inspiring for like others that go through their dark path, right? But I think, you know, when Dave and we look at this community, it's always been known as a transient hub where people come in, they stay for a year, get some jobs on the strip, make a ton of money, and then they leave. So when I talk to locals that's been here for a while, that seems to be like one of their pain points of like, oh, you never know when these entrepreneurs or businesses are going to stay around, if they're just going to come in, take the resources that's meant and that's for the community, that's for entrepreneurs that's been here. Like, how do you differentiate that? What's your pain point when it comes to meeting other entrepreneurs that you have that maybe gut feeling that's like, I don't know if you're going to be here around for a long time, or like what is really their sustainable plan for adding value to Vegas versus just coming in here, tapping the resources and then leaving?
I think the best way to identify somebody if they're going to be a Las Vegas native or if they'll be transient is how they view the city. If they hang out primarily on the Strip and they're just going to the clubs and eating the nice restaurants, then they're probably somebody who's going to be temporary. If they're somebody who explores outside of the Strip and they go to the Arts District or downtown or any of the local casinos, or even some of the local entertainment areas, then this means that they're looking for something much more than just the typical Strip experience. And it's that those type of people are growing. You can generally identify them from if their content, what's their content about, or the conversations that they have, if they're trying to understand the city past kind of the superficiality of it, right? That's something that's one of the cruxes of Hollywood as well, is that people call it fake, right? Because it's very superficial. And Vegas does have a component to that, but the more that you explore outside of the Strip, the more you realize the authenticity of the people who live out here. And one final thing to wrap kind of this thought up is a lot of those who are not from Vegas, I hear this very often, that they come here and once they explore outside the Strip and they hang out with the locals, they always say how great the city is. And it's because the city is based off of hospitality. So there really isn't a racist bone in most people's body, right? It's not sexist. It's not, right? It's very non-discriminatory. Everyone is very treated the same because it is built off of taking care of others, right? And doing favors for others. And that's what I think is some of the most welcoming aspects of it. And outside of, some business things like no state taxes and things like that, I do think a lot of people stay here, not because of the Strip, but because of the people.
That's why I stay here, right?
You stay here because of me, and you need to release that episode.
I know. Well, no, you bring up a really good point, because especially being based on hospitality, right? There's, and you mentioned non-discriminatory. I've seen that, I've only been here, I'm celebrating 6 years, and I've been able to do a lot of wonderful things in this city. And what my passion is working with veteran entrepreneur organizations. Now as state coordinator for Global Entrepreneurship Week, like we were able to get a proclamation signed by the governor's office to really take that to a whole nother level this year. It's all taken time, but it hasn't taken nearly as much time as it might in other places where it's like, everyone's like, you have to be here your whole life, or it's a good old boys network. There is a certain level of that, but I believe that it's, at least what I've experienced, is Vegas doesn't care where you came from or even what you've done. You can come here and do what you are designed to do, but as long as you do what you say you're going to do, and you don't piss people off. I mean, there's ways that people can do it one way and not piss people off, and then there's ways that they can definitely go against the grain in a way that can come across as disrespectful. And I've seen it happen with so many people, and a lot of those people, you know, aren't even around anymore. And that goes with big businesses on the Strip where they did stuff the wrong way. What was the name of that club at Palms that one time? See, everybody forgot.
Chaos?
Yeah, it's Chaos.
Chaos. I thought you were talking about the one that was before that.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, well, you've been
that was like Moon,
right.
I think is what it was called.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that does get done the wrong way, and then there's a lot of stuff that trickles out, but there's also people that come in and do it the right way. So I've been able to meet a lot of incredible people that are from here, a lot of people that are transient, and it's always interesting to see where some people decide to stick it out, where some people, you know, get spooked and just bounce. So it is really fascinating to see that happen.
I mean, just look at the political side of things. Vegas has never had a Vegas-born mayor. There is somebody named Cedric Greer who's running this year, who's looking to be the first Vegas native or Vegas-born mayor. So a lot of the political people that operate the politics of it have been transient themselves, right? Yeah. So you're saying it's a trickle-down effect from there. I mean, it was started by the mob and et cetera. And
we're not supposed to be here, if
right?
you think about it.
Yeah, and I think it was in the 90s. The city was the city's makeup was like 60 or 65% locals, and now it's almost 50-50, and is shifting towards the other way of having being actually more transient. And I think the reason why it felt most transient, as I noted before, is most of those people who are from here. They just like to go, you know, make a decent amount of money, right? Not having to go get a college degree, go pour some drinks, right? Or go work on the Strip and get a corporate job and kind of just, you know, have fun in your life and not really aspiring for most. And I think that was kind of what was holding the city back for a long time, was that the lack of kind of entrepreneurs and just it was overweight hustlers, people working 2-3 jobs, and underweight entrepreneurs. And now it's starting to shift the other way. I think the content creator world has definitely exploded out here, from YouTube to Twitter, right, to Instagram. I don't know about TikTok. I don't hang out on that as much. But it is really enlightening and very exciting. And, you know, there are some fundamental changes that I believe. I have a little bit of some strong stances on some things that I think Vegas needs to change, but it's heading in the right direction.
With that being said, I mean, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you say is the most important thing that you would like to see, or that you believe just needs to happen in Vegas in the next 3 to 5 years to change that path? Yeah,
so Vegas, again, this is tapping onto the experience side of the world, and this is from a local's perspective, right? Because Vegas is specialized in an industry, I think a lot of other things need to be specialized and catered towards hospitality, entertainment, experience, tech as well. And so two things I think that can mainly change here is, one, I have a very firm belief that women are the most important people in the city. I realized this very quickly at Omnia, that women control everything on the Strip. The Strip would not work if women disappeared. But if all the men disappeared, I think it would run fine, right? And the reason why is that they're the salespeople of the city, and so they need to be protected. The servers were the ones who controlled the bussers' tips, which I always thought to be kind of interesting. It was complete opposite of most of the cities. And the servers got to control how much the bussers made. I didn't think it was fair. I was like, why is she controlling how much money I make? I do more work than she does, but she's the salesperson, right? And so it's kind of flipped on the other side. I'm actually a big proponent of expanding the industry of sex work to a degree. I had Jazz Sheffer on my show, very early episode. I think it was like number 6 or 7. And she's leading the Sex Workers Alliance of Nevada. And I do believe that, we have they call it full service workers. That's legalized in a lot of counties. I do believe that should be legalized here in Vegas, and it should be turned into an industry. I do think that would also help the university as well, right? So if you legalize sex work or you expand what sex work means and you can create a district around that, then you also create industry around the education and the science around it, and it does create more jobs overall. If it's legal across all of the other counties, why shouldn't it be legal here to add to the experience? You already have the adult entertainment industry out here from the adult films kind of side of things, and you have some of the OnlyFans girls that are out here as well. So I do think that needs to be expanded. To me, it's such an easy layup. And from the educational side of things, I was actually the president of the Industry Leaders Council in the College of Liberal Arts after I graduated. The dean of the college reached out to me to spearhead this committee. And the whole point of it was something that's an issue with not just Vegas education, but this is all colleges. And it's this idea that if you get a college degree in a non-hard science, so things like liberal arts, even hospitality is in this, film, entertainment, etc., there's no clear path to employment. Really, the path to employment is your network. Whereas if you get a degree, right, in things like health science or things like biology or engineering, these are the hard sciences where you actually have to have the qualifications. Whereas on the Strip, most corporate managers, some of them didn't even graduate high school, right? They're just part of the machine that operates itself. And so I think that our education system out here should have more of a public and private partnership with the leading industries out here that it specializes in, so that you can create a path of employment without having the youth going to the university. Might not like this, but right, going to the university, getting in crippling debt, and then going and getting a $50,000 a year job when now you're going to be in debt your whole life. You should just fast track that experience from high school straight to the casinos or straight to whatever entertainment industry that you want to be in, or networking. I actually proposed to the university that I thought they should create a college of networking on campus, because that's something that the city really specializes in, and that would attract more people to the city, and can also create a lane to whatever industry that you kind of want. So those, I think, are kind of the two main ones. I've had a lot of conversations about it. And I think over the next 10 to 20 years, we'll see more changes as this is getting a little more political, but as populism's on the rise and you see a lot of less career politicians in the space, we can actually really allow Vegas to flourish and the experiences and the industries that it specializes in, and not force some industries that the city obviously does not want or does not excel in.
No, I completely agree with that. I love your fresh perspective on the sex work here industry too, because that's such a taboo topic that it's either it's very polarizing, right? But that's where change is really made. And I know you have a lot of content out there and you have a lot of your stories just publicly and being transparent with everyone about your whole entire journey. Is there anything that you're most excited about outside of your podcast on where your personal transformation is going as a native of Las Vegas? And what is something that you're really most proud of that people may have not known you just by looking at your podcast and your content?
Yeah, I'm actually most proud of the crypto side of things, of where it's going. When I first got into crypto in 2017, I saw it was very, very clear to me that crypto and Vegas were very aligned, and I've been trying everything in my path to try to bring mainstream crypto adoption to Las Vegas. This eventually led me to creating my last business called Native Research, which was a crypto consultation group that helped politicians, C-suite executives, educators, etc., on crypto knowledge. And I used to host a bunch of meetups. Ultimately, why I pivoted my show from Vegas-based to crypto is I was talking with a lot of the casino operators and things with like MGM and Circa and some of the strip clubs and things like that on how they can utilize crypto in their business model, they said that they saw it more as a marketing expense than a profitable business endeavor. And this was back in 2022. So my thought was, I'll have to come back to this at some point in time. Recently, there was a conference called the Bitcoin Nashville Conference in 2024. This is where President Trump spoke with RFK and a bunch of people. It was the largest crypto conference ever in the industry's history. It's coming here next year, and now I'm working with them or assisting them in bringing the right leaders to the conference from the Vegas city. So I'm tapping into all of my network so that we can actually bring Vegas to the future of finance, a future of experience, a future of technology. And so for me, it's a very full circle moment because it's something I've been trying to do for 8 years. And with my company, Emblem Vault, that also operates in this space and has had a lot of success working with Bitcoin itself. I might have the opportunity to speak on stage, not only just for Vegas, but also from my professional experience as well. So that's what I'm very, very excited about. And eventually, once that concludes, then hopefully whenever my, that entrepreneurial journey ends in crypto, I do want to bring it back to my Vegas experience back somehow to really transform the city, because there's no other city like it in the world. And a final stat here before I wrap this up is, there's only 2 cities in the entire world that were created in the 20th century, so in the 1900s, that have over 1 million people in the world, or have 1 million people. Those 2 cities are Dubai and Las Vegas. And
no way.
Yeah, if you look at it, it's a pretty wild stat to think about. And it just shows you how far ahead Vegas truly is from the rest of the world. Dubai is starting to catch up a little bit, but Vegas is now on the kind of the grand stage of the world. And I'm excited that you guys can pursue that opportunity so that you can have the opportunity to identify the different people in the city that make it great.
It's funny thank you for that, because when I was helping an organization at one point, I was kind of designing a global sales initiative for, we'll just say an influencer who I won't even name his name. But it was a global initiative. And like the way I looked at designing the sales structure was 2 small lean teams, 6 people in Vegas and 6 people in Dubai, one for the Eastern Hemisphere, one for the Western Hemisphere, because those are the 2 cities where, I'm not saying it couldn't happen in something like a New York City, but then there was just something different about that the world recognizes those cities differently. And it's easier to get caught up in the clutter of a big city like New York City, but still have the same power of a New York City in a much smaller market where things are, ridiculously more affordable. Even though you said the prices are going up, it still just seemed like that thing. So it's interesting that those are the 2 cities that I had seen just as a natural opportunity, and you pulled the stats on that. So both
of those cities are based around entertainment as well.
Yep.
So there's something about the industry that entertainment is on the rise, which is crazy because it's been in Hollywood for such a long time, and I guess that's just it's just a strength of the Western world. Is entertaining people, but entertainment is evolving now from just entertainment of film, right, to entertainment of experience, and that's really where Vegas is headed towards.
All right, just as someone that has not lived here their whole life, I really just have this burning desire to ask the question. It's like, okay, so favorite show, favorite experience, and favorite restaurant, and taco. I was like, we're gonna go for taco.
Oh man, so it's hard to name just one movie. I have 3 favorite movies. I try to basket them all. Can I do that?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Sure.
You can do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want.
Forrest Gump, Ace Ventura, and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Those are my 3 favorite movies. Yeah, a little bit of the oldies side. And then what was it? Favorite food? Tacos.
And favorite restaurant to eat here?
Ooh.
And favorite show that you got to see. Yeah.
Anything in entertainment that you experienced that like really took your breath away?
So
besides EDC,
right? That's my. I say Vegas is EDC is my favorite holiday of the year. I've gone now. My first one was in 2012, and I've been 10 times. So I think I've only missed 2 years out of that.
The last time I went, wow.
It's the best. Favorite restaurant? I live in the Arts District, so I'm gonna be biased and say Esther's Kitchen. because I do hang out there a lot. It's really the best restaurant down there by far. And favorite show in Las Vegas. So I'm not a traditional show goer, like in the terms of like going and seeing the Blue Mountain Group or Beatles. Those ones are cool. I've definitely been a club guy and a day club guy pretty much my entire life. But outside of that, I would say, oh man, football games are really fun, right? I'm being basic here. Football games are fun, but if you want the best kind of experience, I'd say Golden Knight games are probably the best overall experience. If you want the energy, the show that they put on in the beginning and the end, and now that they've won a Stanley Cup, but it's the Golden Knights, right? They came during a time during the mass shooting that happened at Mandalay Bay, and it really rallied all of us together, and it was just this sign of like, hey, we're not going to stand down. And right, they ended up going to the Stanley Cup that year, and now that they finally went through and won it, it's truly feels like the Golden Knights is Vegas. It's not an extension team. I think this is where the Raiders struggle a little bit. It is literally born in the sand of the desert, and the neon of the lights, and that's why it gets to be golden, and it's truly is the best experience, I think, of any show or venue.
That just brought me back to the quote you said the other day, right, about the desert.
Yeah, we were talking about books, and it's the desert will teach you everything that you need to know about yourself, out of The Alchemist. And yeah, it's been fascinating again, we're not supposed to be here. Right. And when you look at all of these magical things that we have here, I remember I saw this cartoon in the Sunday paper. Right. I'm aging myself here, 43 years old. And it was the BC, I think, or something like that. It was one of those little cartoons. And there was this guy, and he was just like, imagine. And all he said was imagine. And it was the silhouette, and you could see Vegas, but the other guy's looking and there's nothing because it's the desert, and it's like we're not supposed to be here, right? I make that joke all the time whenever I'm like ordering drinks or something like that. I'm like, what can I get for you to drink? Water. It's like a fucking desert out there, because it is. Like we're in the middle of a desert. But if you look what's been born here and what's been built here, it's absolutely fascinating. And I want to throw in this funny fact because I figured you were going to say EDC.
It's the best, dude. EDC is the best weekend of the year. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah, it's my favorite place in the world. I actually hadn't been since I've lived here until this year. But, bro, my first one was in 2000. And before it was even in LA.
OG.
Before it was even in LA, I have the VHS cassette of it like on my yeah, and then 2000, 2001 and 2002. And then I came back here for 2015, 2016. And then again for 2024. So
it's getting a little expensive now, but it's still it's the best. It's as you get older, it's a little bit tough, but it is getting a lot busier. It's a lot more expensive. When I was in college, it was $60 to take an Uber helicopter to it. Now I think it's like almost $1,000 a person.
Yeah, yeah. And if anyone asks, it's $1,200. Just pay me, and I'll get you on the helicopter.
Yeah, the Dave Copter.
Right, the Dave Copter. So. Besides EDC, besides any time that Deadmau5 is playing, at 3 a.m. somewhere, where can people? He does?
I said, where I'm at.
Oh yeah, that's where I ran into you the last time. I think I saw you in public. I was like, I just walked by. I was like, bro, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning at Deadmau5.
Yeah, I'm always there.
But so besides Deadmau5 and EDC, where can people find you, and where can people connect?
Yeah, so if you're strolling around the Arts District, I am usually at First Friday. That's probably one of my other favorite events. Is the longest running event in the city. But you can find me. I'm always on Twitter. If you're a Twitter person, I'm a diehard guy at Jake Gallen _ on Twitter, or you can find me on YouTube. It's the same thing at Jake Gallen, and my podcast Jake's Guest List. But really, just go to jakegallen.com and you can find all of my information there. If you're interested in Vegas, entrepreneurship, the tech space, crypto, whatever, feel free to just shoot me a DM. I always try to respond within a few days. So, feel free. I love the city, and it's awesome to connect with fellow entrepreneurs. And appreciate you guys for having me. And, I wish you the best on this journey. It's tough It sounds like it's a little bit easier now that there's a few more content creators, but I think you guys are on the right path.
Thanks so much, man. And thank you for saying yes to this. And with that, we will have to bring you back on the show for part 2.
No more blue balls this time, you promise.
Release it.
Well, guys, hope you guys enjoyed today. Please reach out to Dave and I on pursue.vegas. You can reach out to Jake directly. He's usually in his room by the Arts District. So.
always at home. Sometimes it's fun. It's funny when you work from home because you realize that you haven't left your room for 2 or 3 days outside of just going to the gym or maybe just going to get some food because you're lazy to cook. But you're like, man, I need to go socialize at times.
I need a little human interaction. I'm getting weird.
And that's when you then go overdo it. You go down to the bar and you haven't drank in like 2 weeks.
And then you find Dave at 3 a.m.
I find Dave at Dead Mouse. Yeah.
I said this one time. I said, you know what's better than walking out of Dead Mouse and Cascade at 3 o'clock in the morning from Zook and it's just like barely raining?
What is it?
Nothing.
That was anticlimactic as shit, dude.
I'm actually going to see Dead Mouse in Denver at Red Rocks for 20-year anniversary. So
nice.
Maybe I'll see you there.
Could be.
This one definitely put the outro.
We'll put the outro on it.
And we're out.